Hello everyone, we hope you are all doing good. On behalf of CISA, we welcome you all to the webinar for preventing human errors in cybersecurity. A quick introduction about myself. I am Bharat Malik. I work on business development team here at CISA and will be the moderator for this session today. So going to the quick facts about CISA. CISA is a global payment security specialist company serving across a wide range of industries with a footprint in more than 35 plus countries. We have a unique expertise in payment security domain and forensic investigation as well. Our robust security posture is definitely possible with CISA's exceptional set of services. Like, for example, we are an approved global payment forensic investigator and have resolved some of the highly complex cases as well. And not only this, we are also one of the 28 organizations to be part of the PCI GARE committee for the second time in a row. So many CIOs, security architects, information security leaders have asked us, is there a way to mitigate insider threat? Why didn't our cybersecurity awareness training work? So these are some of the questions which has been widely asked by the CISOs and the security architects. So we are answering these sort of questions on this particular webinar. So I'm pleased to introduce today's speaker, Mr. Kaushik Pandey. Kaushik is our principal consultant and he has handled several information security audits. Also, Kaushik has successfully implemented assessment programs at leading banks, third-party payment processors, ID, BPOs, airlines, payment gateways, etc. He is also an authorized trainer for CISA's CPSI, a flagship training program. It is used for imparting the knowledge on the payment security implementation and what a QSA can look out for successful audit and certification from a compliance perspective. We also have our Mr. Srihari as our guest speaker today. He is CISO at Reliance Payment Solutions, and he will be sharing his experience in terms of cybersecurity trainings and will also be sharing some of the success stories with us all today. So before I hand over the platform to the speakers, I also have a few housekeeping items to cover about the webinar platform. So this particular session is going to last for 60 minutes, 45 plus 15 minutes for the Q&A. All the attendees will be muted automatically to have a smooth flow of the presentation. You can also submit your questions that arise during the webinar through the Q&A section located below your screen, which will be addressed at the Q&A session time. This session will be a recorded one, and we are going to upload the recording of this particular session in the webinar section of the CISA's YouTube channel. So today I'd like to welcome Kaushik to take over the platform now. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, Bharat. I hope I'm audible. Please confirm.
Yes, Kaushik, loud and clear.
All right, great. Thanks a lot, Bharat. And thanks to all for joining in. And welcome to today's session towards how exactly organizations like, let's say, yours and ours can prevent human errors arising inside your organization. Myself, Kaushik, and I'll be leading the entire session for the next 30 minutes. After 30 minutes of the session, where we, let's say, will be talking about different things, which we'll just let's say discuss in some certain while. We'll be inviting Mr. Srihari to for 15 minutes to let us know about let's say his experiences in Reliance and his past experiences as well. That how exactly security awareness training has helped Reliance and the other industries as well in whichever he has worked in preventing cybersecurity breaches. And once we are done with that particular session for the 10-15 minutes, then we'll be opening the platform for the Q&A. And accordingly, all of us can, let's say, clarify our doubts. Human errors. How exactly organizations like, let's say, yours and mine can prevent ourselves? So how exactly we have drafted the entire session is the simple monolithic which we have been following from many of webinars right now, and which has been very effective as well. Many of you might come back and say that, okay, why monolithic? Because this is how exactly the industry is driven right now. Because we need to, first of all, understand the problem statement. Why exactly these breaches are happening, or what all breaches have happened across the globe. Based upon those learnings, we'll get an idea that, okay, let's say Based upon these, let's say, the different case studies, different types of threat vectors, attacks, and all those things, we'll get to know that, okay, what all things they have done wrong. Accordingly, we learn, we'll improve, and go one step further. That is the way reason why we'll be discussing about the human errors in cybersecurity and a few case studies as well. That which all breaches have happened due to human errors, and what exactly they should have done so that they would have secured, or let's say they would have mitigated that particular let's say gap over there with respect to security control. Once we discuss about that, we'll be discussing about security awareness training and the training model, that how different organizations can train different types of employees inside their organization. It's not a one size fit all approach at all, guys. It's not. If we are thinking that, okay, it's just a compliance check the box, and we can just go ahead and have one common security awareness training for the entire organization, then that particular thing might not work for your organization. And that's what we'll discuss in the security awareness training in the different models over there. Post which we'll be discussing that, okay, how exactly organizations can test their cybersecurity awareness, their maturity model inside the organization, and what will test cases can be formed on the same. So once we have, let's say, understood the problem statement, understood what is exactly security awareness training, the different models, and how exactly you or your organization will be testing these, let's say, the maturity frameworks, we'll be calling on, let's say, Mr. Srihari to tell you about his success story over here, and accordingly, be going to the Q&A. So on that particular note, let's start today's session. Only amateurs attack machines, and professionals always target people. This particular slide is not talking about the professionals like, let's say, you and me. These professionals are talking about the hackers, the intruders, the people with malicious intent. That is what this particular slide is talking about. And I believe that majority of us will even stay connected as well with this particular slide, because that is something which all of us have seen. And it might be possible that many of us have committed these kinds of mistakes as well inside our office premises when we sent out the wrong email to a wrong recipient. Maybe tag somebody who was not supposed to be tagged on that particular email ID. Maybe sent an attachment with an unencrypted format, in an unencrypted format. Right? Many such cases are there, and that's something which we'll discuss as well. But what we are trying to communicate over here is that the hackers, the intruders know about how exactly a human mind works. They know that, okay, humans tend to make mistakes. And that is why they are typically focusing upon this human error component to compromise and then accordingly get access to the data. So why exactly these so many threats are on the rise? First of all, it might be because of the insufficient data protection strategies and solutions which we have today. It might be because we have such a vast increase in number of devices with access to the sensitive data. Sensitive data can any be, let's say, PII data or any data which belongs to a customer, which belongs to your, let's say, end consumers or whatever the case might be. Proliferation of sensitive data moving out from the mobile devices. More partners, employees, contractors are accessing your network every day. How exactly are you controlling their access over there? Greater complexity of technologies, because majority of the organizations today have n number of security controls, or say n number of security technologies, not control, but the technologies. And that increases the complexity. And complexity is always an enemy of cybersecurity. And lastly, increasing the use of the cloud apps and the infra. If we talk about stats and figures over here, around 3.4 billion records are compromised every year from a private organization, which brings around, let's say, on average, around $7.35 million per breach an organization gets impacted from. Public reputation and consumer confidence are a few byproducts of the same. So with this much challenge happening across the market, Whatever we detect today, whatever we detect in those breaches, whatever breaches, whatever we have identified and comes out to the public, is just the tip of an iceberg. We ourselves today are not sure that how exactly access controls, what little breaches, what little malwares are still sitting inside their organization premises, and we have no idea about the same. That is why you will see that human errors today is the main cause of 95% of the cybersecurity breaches. 95%, guys. That's a huge number. And why exactly is it a huge number? Because we could have saved 19 out of 20 cybersecurity breaches if we would have, let's say, eliminated this human error subcomponent over here. 1 in 6 employees in the BFSI industry are unaware of training at their organizations, or their organization does not offer training at all. And around 29% of the healthcare employees who receive training only get it once. Only get it once, guys. In the entire portfolio, in the entire let's say whatever curriculum they are working over there, it's only once when they are getting this particular thing, this particular training. If you'll see many of the let's say the case studies, many of the newsletters and all, you will see the top 5 reasons whether okay why exactly a cybersecurity breach is happening. Because what causes a breach is the first step of preventing that particular breach. And in this entire, let's say today's session, we'll be talking from a breach perspective only. We'll be talking from a forensics perspective because that's how we learn, that's how we improve, and that's how we'll be able to protect our organization. So the first and foremost point, all of us will agree, old unpatched security vulnerabilities. Latest example, today morning, I was reading, let's say, a newsletter where we're talking about Microsoft Exchange vulnerabilities, zero-day vulnerability, which has happened and compromised so many institutions, 300 to 400,000, or let's say 500,000 across US and Europe and Asia and many different countries altogether. The old unpatched security vulnerabilities. The next one over here, the human error, the malwares, the insider misuse, the physical theft of a data carrying device. Now, out of these top five reasons why exactly it happens, you will see around 3 of them are actually depending upon a human, about a particular user. The human error, the insider misuse, and the physical theft of a data carrying device. And that is the way reason why exactly organizations today are facing so many breaches, because we are not able to address the most strongest, the most business strongest asset of an organization, which are the employees, which are the humans. We are not able to protect them at all. And that is what is prevalent based upon these case studies as well. Skill based, like let's say if somebody slipped, or let's say has a lapsed or negligence, whatever the case might be, okay, because of that particular thing, a breach happened, okay, because the employees are tired, let's say not paying attention, are distracted, maybe something or the other went wrong in their personal lives or professional lives and all. And that's the reason why, let's say, a particular case study which has been depicted over here, where an employee at a secondary college accidentally published more than 300 students' records on the school's intranet. To go deeper into, let's say, this particular thing, or the other, let's say, things about this is, like, let's say, I believe it was Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, lately in the March 2016. An employee over there inadvertently and without any malicious intent downloaded sensitive data onto a personal storage device. Okay. And they didn't have the malicious intent, but they were not informed, let's say. They were not aware that, okay, they cannot do this particular thing. And that particular data contained, let's say, sensitive data, sensitive PI data of around 44,000 customers over there, which was a huge deal. However, as soon as it was identified, an affidavit was signed by the particular employee, and then it was said that, okay, it has not been breached and it's a good to go. But skill based slips and lapses or negligence towards the same. Then comes decision based. User makes a faulty decision, employee not having enough information about the specific circumstances, like for example, unencrypted emails with attachments sent to incorrect recipients. Let's say a particular case study on the same. I believe it was the city of Calgary in Canada, which was sued for $92.9 million. It was a breach in 2017, where 3,700 employees' PII data actually got exfiltrated, actually got breached. How exactly it got breached? Because one of the city staffers in the city of Calgary, in Canada, actually sent out an let's say an email to another employee in another municipality, where they went ahead and shared the workers, let's say their board claim details, the records, the social security numbers, addresses, date of birth, and whatnot. Decision based, unencrypted emails, or let's say emails which they have sent and they have no idea as well that okay, what exactly or whom exactly they are sending to. And then comes knowledge based, where employees are in a new situation and they don't know what exactly they should do in this particular situation, and accordingly the let's say the breach or the particular thing gets impacted. This gives us the case study of I believe Snapchat in 2016, where they had a huge quote on their let's say to given to all the users, which says that okay, we are just impossibly sorry from our end. There has been a breach, and what exactly they were breached internally, the payroll info of around 700 users, or let's say 700 former and current employees of Snapchat, was actually sent to an attacker. How exactly? That attacker pretended to be, let's say, a social media company CEO. Basically, he was pretending to be Ivan Spiegel, and that tricked that particular employee into emailing these many, let's say, PII data elements across. So you can just understand from this, let's say, from these case studies about the human errors in cybersecurity, that so many challenges are happening across the industry just because the employees are not paying attention. An email ID which could have been checked, an email attachment which could have been encrypted, let's say a user access which could have been, let's say, made a role-based access control rather than a mandatory access control. If these things would have been, let's say, prevented, then of course, you and me won't be having this particular discussion about why exactly human errors are, let's say, have to be protected at all the times. And that gives us the right flavor that why exactly security awareness training is required, and are we doing it the right way? So what exactly is the security awareness training? It's basically, in simpler words, it's more or less like a formal cybersecurity education, which is given to the entire workforce inside the organization. And what topics it covers? It covers basically a variety of information security threats and the policies and the procedures, how to address them, right? This is the typical you can say in cybersecurity awareness training, whatever might be conducted, they'll talk about the different information security threats, vulnerabilities, has this happened, that happened, and all. You are just sitting around in that particular training, getting bored because you cannot connect the dots. That why exactly this training is given to you? Why exactly are you even required to sit in that particular room and then let's say are going ahead for this particular training, right? So these questions need to be answered, and for that what we need to do is that we need to have a customized model that how to train different types of employees. So first of all, things start from a system hygiene. That is, we should have a proactive and systematic process so that, let's say, a standard system hygiene can be maintained from a physical perspective as well, and from a desktop or laptop perspective as well. Like, let's say, a clean screen, a clean desktop over there. That, let's say, the table wherever you are sitting over there should not have anything which, let's say, can transmit the data. For example, mobile phones with the smartphone cameras should not be there in a sensitive area. I'm not saying every area, but sensitive area. Let's say for that particular example, right? And accordingly, these things have to be imparted to the people whosoever are responsible for the same. But it should not be told that, okay, if you don't do this, then we'll be, let's say, firing you. That's not the way. The way is that whenever you are telling that, okay, there's a system hygiene which you have to maintain, you have to tell them why exactly you have to maintain system hygiene. You have to tell them about the challenges which they might face if, uh, let's say the data gets breached. So right now, I'm not talking about the challenges to them because they might get fired or whatnot. I'm talking about the challenges like, let's say, a hack can happen, a data breach can happen, okay, and how important it is for them to protect the customer's data. Explain them the relevance of that rather than let's say instigating fear onto them that if you don't do this, then this will happen. Why? Because fear is always a temporary emotion. It'll fade off. And once it has been faded off, that particular employee will go disgruntled. That particular employee will think that you don't trust them. That particular employee will not pay attention to anything, whatever is said after that. So, accordingly, you have to develop a plan, create some cross-functional team, primarily of the senior management, so that they can plan the cybersecurity events and consider you can say hypothetical attacks inside the organization. Accordingly, let's say you'll be mapping out the risk profiles, study a few cyber patterns inside the organization and outside as well. When I say inside and outside, it means a few incidents might have happened, a few of the technologies, risks, and vulnerabilities you might have understood. Okay, and accordingly, let's say map out the entire risk profile, because this risk profile will give you an idea, the base of formulating a customized awareness training inside your organization. If let's say your employees or whichever employees you are imparting that particular knowledge to um, are not even interacting with the web application firewall and how to configure it, or let's say a VPN connection, how to configure it, right? Or let's say that you should have VPN connection. If those employees are not even using a VPN connection, then why exactly are you giving them that particular knowledge? Because as soon as you're giving them that particular knowledge, they'll think that, okay, where exactly shall I fit this knowledge in? I don't use it. I cannot relate it to anything, whatever I'm doing in the real life. That's why the mapping out of the risk profile and accordingly, let's say, filling out the blocks over there is very important. Accordingly, you'll be assessing and measuring, that is focusing on rough figures, not precise, and make sure that the analysis do not go into paralysis. That is, you do so much analysis, you do so much assessment and measure that you just get stuck over there. So don't do that. Accordingly, mitigation of risk, you'll buy a cyber insurance and then you'll get started. Even a rough plan is okay, but you need to start somewhere or the other. And accordingly, you will be having a training plan, simulated phishing attack, analyzing, and then repeating that particular thing as well over and over again. If you see, majority of the use cases, whenever organizations go ahead and try and impart the cybersecurity awareness inside their organization, uh, personality personalities is mostly the missing piece of the security awareness training. I think I was just going through LinkedIn or something like that, where I saw security awareness training, a slogan, or let's say a badge written over there with a door, and that particular door had a sign of pull sh, okay, or pulsh. So basically, what exactly this pulsh means is that it is a combination of pull and push. So no matter how many times actually we are stressing on pull, the employees will always continue to push. And that is what adds another threat level to our network and the data security. There was a case study from Myers-Briggs, and Myers-Briggs are basically known for their personality tests. And what exactly they said is that if an employee is most susceptible to manipulation, then go ahead and give them training on their social engineering attacks. What can happen? And if that particular personnel is most likely to take risks and all those things, then tell them the awareness training about the risky behaviors, that if they do, let's say, this particular risk, then this data theft might happen, this data exfiltration might happen, and things like that. Do not tell them that, okay, you will get fired. Do not go with that fear. Do not instigate that particular fear that this particular, if you don't do this, then we'll just sack you off. Don't go on that particular approach. Otherwise, that will not help at all. I'm telling you. Okay. So, basis upon that Myers-Briggs theories, let's say many of the organizations have implemented the cybersecurity awareness training, which is basically works on the personality piece of a particular user rather than working on the other piece. And accordingly, organizations have got very, very fine results as well at the end of the day. And that is the way reason why exactly you'll see an employee guide over here where they talk about strategy and policies, then talk about protection, where you are designing and applying controls to manage the risks. Then they talk about the operation, the respond, the remediate, and then of course assuring that evaluating and assessing controls so that the stakeholder that risk is managed and controls are effective and whatnot over here. So what exactly we understand from these two slides over here, the solution, that the human risk management might be the best possible way for us to, let's say, attain the security awareness. And in the words of Leslie Ashley Rose, the CEO at Living Security, she says, employees should be your best cyber defenders. It should not be your weakness. It should be your best cyber defenders. And that's how you should approach the awareness training at that time. Majority of the organizations today will be very, let's say, relevant with this particular thing, whatever I'm going to say, where the organization come back and say that, okay, I'm required to perform security awareness training because of a compliance, because of a compliance check. Okay, and that is the way reason why exactly your employees are not engaged in training, because they are just checking the compliance box. And that's why the training, whatever you are imparting, are just falling on deaf ears. Audience is not paying attention at all, guys, because their understanding is limited and applying the lessons is nearly impossible, because whatever we are, let's say, giving them the training of, that might not be even applicable to them, or they are not able to relate that with their day-to-day activities. And challenge in the training landscape, because businesses are doing a very, very poor job in motivating their team and instilling vested interest in companies' cybersecurity at all the times. And why is this happening? Because of damaging tactics. What exactly do we mean by damaging tactics? It means that whenever we are imparting these trainings, we are saying that it's a compliance necessity. As soon as compliance necessity, the executives will transfer this particular thing to the frontline managers. The frontline managers will transfer it to the individual contributors, and then just check the box and let's say whatnot. They will not even go through the training videos, and then they will just go through whatever examination, and that's done. So they are just let's say what exactly they're doing. They are doing do it, and say it's done. That's it. That's what they are doing exactly over there, rather than applying concepts, rather than applying their brains in mapping those things inside their environment, inside their work to work life. The second damaging tactics: no actionable data and insights, because majority of the times it's very hard to show return on investment on these particular trainings. That is the way reason why CISOs, let's say, a security awareness training budget will just get cut off, because of course they are not able to showcase it to the management that what is the exactly is the ROI behind this training, because the metrics which are used to measure are vague and not required at all. And that's what ends the, let's say, a CISO, or let's say a CIO, or let's say any of the C-level executives in going ahead with the most affordable training. But we tend to forget that they are cheaper for a particular reason, because they are not customized based upon your organization. Those are generic in nature. So an irrelevant training is near to, let's say, no training at all, no security awareness training at all for your organization. And lastly, the fear-based repercussions. When we are trying to, let's say, have fear, uncertainty, or doubt, we are creating that inside the employees' minds, which goes with the food analysis, FUD analysis, fear, uncertainty, and doubt. What exactly we do over there? We'll say, if you do this or don't do this, a bad thing will happen and you will get in major trouble. We are instigating fear. That will not help because it's a very, very short term emotion, as I told you earlier as well. And in the long term, it will be ineffective, toxic, and employees will not feel trusted or autonomous inside the organization. And that is the very reason why exactly organizations are required to go ahead with the maturity model as well on the same. So how exactly it goes is that initially, let's say you will not have a security awareness training or a model inside your organization. Then based upon a compliance, you might be starting ahead with the security awareness training because you have to start somewhere, right? So start somewhere, start with the compliance focused things. Then you have to promote the awareness and the change, the long-term sustainment, and accordingly, you'll be getting the metrics where you will be evaluating each and everything. And how you can do this? First of all, you have to gain the leadership support. You have to create a security awareness advisory board. Get specific on who exactly your target groups are. Do not tell a system admin what security best practices have to be applied by network admin, and vice versa as well. Do not tell, let's say, your IRT, that is your incident response team inside your organization, that let's say, do not send out the emails from, let's say, from these particular systems. No, not at all. They're there to respond to alerts over there. Okay, give them this particular knowledge. The other things can just come as a can just come as a booklet as well. That's not an issue. But that's how you should be driving your security awareness. Identify and prioritizing your human risk. Communicate to and engage your target groups. This is very, very necessary. And that is how, let's say your security awareness training should be covered. So for those of you who are looking for topics that, okay, what will my security awareness training should cover, majority of the organizations based upon the applicability go with, let's say, a few topics, like let's say phishing. In the phishing, it comes social engineering and the safe internet habits as well. Safe internet habits, whatever they have to follow. And safe use of social media, where the mobile computing and the insider threats comes into picture. Then the incident, let's say the incident reporting, then the data privacy practices. That is how, let's say, organizations tend to, cover their security awareness training. And as we were discussing, the maturity model and how exactly you or your organization will know that yes, your security awareness is working or not. You need to have some statistical points, and that is how you will be able to, let's say, showcase the ROI as well to let's say your C-level executives. First of all, you should keep a track of how often incidents are reported before the training and after the training. Accordingly, you will be able to tell that yes, the incidents have reduced or increased. What do you think? It might be possible that the incidents are increased. Why? Because earlier they were not even getting reported. People didn't even know that, okay, this is an incident, what is happening. They had no idea about the same. That is the very reason why exactly it might be possible that the security awareness, after security awareness, the incident reporting might increase. The incidents might have happened previously as well, but they were not getting reported. Now they are getting reported, which is a good practice for you. Then reported phishing email percentage. That is before and after. How many of your users are actually coming back and telling you that, okay, yes, they are getting phishing emails over there. Not clicking it, not clicking on the particular phishing email, but telling you, reporting that, yes, we are getting so many phishing emails, because now they are able to identify and accordingly take whatever mitigation action, whatever you have asked them for. Then direct assessment of employee knowledge, where organizations are going ahead and doing a test or let's say something like that, so that they can evaluate their knowledge about those people. And then the incident remediation costs. That is how much the incident remediation cost has decreased. Let's say from the last time when the awareness training was not done, or let's say when your employees were not aware. This will give you statistics. This will give you a stat so that you can defend the, let's say, the budget in front of, let's say, your C-level executives. Another thing what you can follow is a red team exercise. So what exactly is the red team exercise? Is basically a simulation of a real world attack happening inside your, or let's say, on your organization, from external, from internal. And accordingly, that will give you a data, that will give you a baseline. And accordingly, organizations can develop a maturity model on the same. So it's basically things like the test information environment, incident response capability, they'll test security controls, organization's ability to, let's say, critical assets from a real world attacks, and the other things as well. Typical red team exercise, how exactly it flows over there inside your organization. And let's say if you are doing this red team exercise and let's say the security model as well, or the maturity model as well, you will be able to evaluate that is security awareness inside your organization working or it's not working at all. So based upon this, based upon, let's say, the entire thing, whatever we have gone through till now, the key point in implementing cybersecurity awareness training inside your organization should always be experiential learning. What is experiential learning? Experiential learning is that you learn by doing or showing and participating rather than just telling them that, okay, these are a list of things which you should do. That's it. Okay, that will not help at all. That will never, ever help at all. And that's why a new concept came into picture, which was the escape rooms. So what exactly an escape room is? Like it's basically like a cyber threat will be simulated inside that particular escape room, and the employees will come together to solve a problem as a team. So it will have a storyline, it will have a limited timers, and accordingly people will be applying their brains, so that how exactly they can come out of that particular situation. This particular thing is not just, let's say, just for theoretical thing, but majority of the organizations are following this particular thing on date. Mastercard, basically their Amanda Joy, the vice president of the technology risk management, said that, okay, we had a very good team who came on this particular escape room concept. They were pretty engaging, and accordingly it helped them a lot, really lot. So whenever you are going ahead and trying to arrange the cybersecurity awareness training inside your organization, go ahead with this experiential learning curve always, so that you can have an escape room kind of a concept, and accordingly, let's say, you can impart the knowledge. And when you are delivering the security awareness training, make sure that it's broken into chunks, not completely given at one time. That is, first of all, start with a short training, a very short training for the entire population. Do a little bit of simulation test after that. See who is performing what over there. Accordingly, that will give you data, that will give you statistics. And based upon that, go into deeper awareness sessions based upon who needs how much, or let's say who needs emphasis on which particular kind of a domain. Focus on the greater risk at that time. Assess the key risk, so that you give employees need to know basis only, and do support their goal at all the times. Make it resonate, that is relevant to their job, relevant to their work experience, so that they can connect to their workday lessons and whatever, let's say, they are doing in their workday lives. They should not be getting a list of rules to follow, but because that will not help at all. And lastly, please avoid been there, done that. This is something which all of us try to escape. Been there, done that, right? That let's say employees will come and they will say that this particular thing I've already done. This particular awareness training that seemed like last year. It's of no relevance to me. So what you can do is that you can do something like a pre-testing before you even let's say go ahead for the particular training, and give them an option of opt out from that training, and maybe give them a more advanced level of training so that it helps them across, rather than giving again the same thing over and over again, because it basically goes in a monotonous fashion, and organizations, so the people do not tend to let's say accept the same. So what exactly we studied, or let's say what exactly we went through today? First of all, we discussed about the problem statement. Based upon the problem statement, we identified that, okay, how exactly a model should be created inside the organization so that we can impart security awareness trainings. And then we discussed about that how exactly we should be, let's say, evaluating our awareness maturity model inside the organization. So on that particular note, I will request Mr. Shrihari Kotni to please come on board and help us with the, let's say, his experience and the different things, whatever he has faced till now. And these things should not go even in hand, that he is a tremendous, you can say, cybersecurity professionals with more than 2 decades of information security, basically, let's say, experience across the globe. He has so many certifications, starting from CISM, CISSP, Six Sigma, and let's say went on. So, Mr. Shrihari, over to you.
Right. Thank you, Kaushik. Thanks for the nice introduction. And actually, I thoroughly enjoyed your session as well. Very nicely covered. So it's very enlightening, actually. Like you have covered really in detail. About the how human errors actually, primary cause are actually, as IBM said, 95% of the issues are because of the human behavior and errors, right? So it could be 95% and it could be less or more, but there are two attributes of the humans, right? So humans are the weakest link in the cybersecurity chain. And the two attributes are actually, one is the curiosity and other is ignorance, right? So I'll give you a simple example that many people who study engineering, right, even after their engineering, even they get into a job, they still carry their textbooks right along with them, right? Do they ever read those books? They keep those engineering books for next 5 to 10 years, only after realizing that they're useless for everyone actually, right? So this is a kind of curiosity that something I missed out during my engineering studies, and which will read one day, right? So why I'm saying this is that like my first cybersecurity incident investigation, I did it in 1999 or even before that, I think. At that time there was no internet, and the email is just setting up. Very large organizations are setting up emails for their employees to communicate, and so one of the email administrator actually started working for a prestigious institute on deputation, or like on project, and he finds some very nice academic articles, etc., right? Then he started sending out those articles, etc. How do you send it out? So basically, the cyber security is not really known, right? So he can directly log in to the email server remotely from the university, and the telnet is open, the FTP is open. He is the administrator. He could actually upload the whatever the material. I think he never read that material again in his life, right? So he loaded so much of data that the one day the mail server has crashed because of no disk space, right? So I was asked to investigate, and I found that this mail server is down because there is no disk space left. So immediately I tried to clean up the logs, etc., but it's not enough. Then I realized that the user directory actually full of some documents, and then I realized that someone from this particular IP address is uploading the documents, and then I finally found actually the person who is managing the mail server is the reason for letting this mail server crash, right? So it is actually because of the ignorance and the curiosity, right? Curiosity that I know how to access it remotely, and I can use it, and ignorance is actually not knowing the implications of what's happening. So things have not changed much. We have the cybersecurity has evolved, and companies are investing. There is specialized teams now. The teams are growing, and as Kaushik has mentioned that the maturity of the awareness, the red teaming, phishing, and all. But still, actually, today the phishing is the primary reason or primary attack. That making most of the cyber attacks are happening, right? So while we see, the phishing attack on the consumers, the impact is very less. It's a one consumer who will be affected. It's the liabilities actually, of the banks, etc., are actually coming into play. But still, the impact is only for one user, one person's account, right? But what happens actually, if phishing happens an employee, right? Or the employee is actually ignorant at his work, right? So the implications of this is actually very expensive for the organizations, right? Imagine actually an employee clicks on a malicious email and which leads to a ransomware attack in the organization, right? The organization may have to spend millions or maybe thousands of dollars either to get their either to pay in the bitcoins or to recover the data or rebuild the whole thing. The loss of the the business time, resources, etc. Right? So why it is? Because someone actually curiously done the clicking of a malicious link. And second thing is, not really, patched. I mean, the internally organization has become vulnerable for someone actually clicking a malicious link, right? So we have been actually, the cybersecurity has been evolving towards zero trust model, patching, the monitoring of some different emails, spam filtering, etc. But fundamentally, the employee related issues are still very becoming very critical, right? The recent attack of Capital One breach, right? It's because the internet facing S3 buckets are actually not configured properly. But people are aware that anything actually S3 bucket, you are using it for internally. There are security groups, etc., which you have to configure, but they're not done properly. So it led to actually a massive breach, right? And all the ransomware attacks are actually happening is all because of the employees' issues, right? So also there is a phishing simulation activity continuously happens, right? And the results have been prominent. Like initially, some 50-60% people used to be phished, right? But then after the phishing happens, then actually you take them to the kind of small awareness program that look, you're phished because this, like phishing this is the meaning of the phishing, and like all this kind of awareness we give. But after 1 year, you surprisingly actually, though the graph is falling, but still today, 15% of the people still are vulnerable for the phishing. Like, they may not be the same people, but in the rotation, actually, still we see that there are 15%, successful phishing happens. That means, that means, even one person gets phished. Actually, it's a catastrophe for the organization, right? And the second thing is, the leadership, the awareness. So if the leaders, I mean, if a phishing or if kind of any, compromise of a person at a senior level, I mean, happens, the implications are very high. But so there's a special leadership training has to be given, actually specifically give an example. But many times we don't know that how many incidents where that the senior leaders are actually phished, because of that there is a major cyber breach happen, right? But thing is, that is one gray area that the leader should be aware that what is the different methods, like honey trapping, or a kind of free gifts, some kind of USB stick, right? Or so you can actually make the people lock their system, we give a lot of awareness. So what if a leader doesn't, lock his system inside his cabin, right? What if actually the leader, while traveling, actually he connects to the public Wi-Fi, and there actually his system gets compromised and his credentials are stolen, right? So that is another thing. And third one is actually the operations teams actually involved in handling the critical data, right? So today there is once cooperative bank has been uh, experiment compromised, and it led to the massive cyber breach, which led to some 150 crores, right? Because of some switch has been compromised and all, right? So these are very expensive breaches. The fundamental reason for most of the breaches are, in spite of all the controls, you have a segregation of duties, you have monitoring, you have change requests, etc. Someone in the chain is either curious that let me do this thing quickly, or better than or make it faster, right? Efficient, then I don't follow certain cybersecurity guidelines because it's affecting the business. So there the compromise happens, and actually it can lead to a major compromise of the systems, right? That is a curiosity. Ignorance is actually that he is not following the procedures, right? And that can be leading to some compromise of the system, or installing some malicious code which I was downloaded from the internet, or accepting some kind of help from outside who may be actually uh, is actually intended to hook him, and you know the compromise, which like a highly organized cyber crimes. So the victim actually is unaware that he is really being targeted for a specific purpose, but he may be ignorant that why someone actually personally compromised, right? So, and the thing is actually, some of the very easy examples, some of the simple examples are the people who involved in the settlement processes, right? They may be not aware that how critical this credit card numbers or account numbers which they are actually sharing with others, right, are so important actually. Like a clear text sharing of card numbers or account numbers can lead to the compromise, right? Where you see number of issues in the dark web, etc., that card numbers are available, is because lack of awareness. So as Kaushik mentioned that whenever you give awareness, it leads to a kind of a rise in the incident. It's because this awareness leads to a kind of healthy discussions internally, right? What healthy discussions means, instead of sticking to known ignorant processes, you're actually the operations team is actually speaking up or reaching out to the information security team, saying that, hey, generally we do this in my previous bank, previous to previous bank, or every time I do this, right? I don't see anything wrong. Do you see anything wrong in this? That's where the InfoSec team actually finds it. For example, the sharing of data with law enforcement agencies, right, on the personal mail IDs, right? Yes, sharing the data with law enforcement agencies is very important, but you have to be sure that it's securely that data is actually shared, right? So leading to a healthy discussions internally, are actually open discussions that whether this particular process is correct or incorrect, is a better way to do it, or will it have any implications. Initially it will lead to some kind of a root cause or in a kind of incident investigation and all, but this kind of open discussion will lead to the improvement of security within the organization. So this is a continuous process. In information security internally, even the review all the process and all, the coverage wouldn't be more than 50-60%, right? So because looking at the bandwidth, like looking at the number of sub processes, the details actually very large. So but thing is, if the operations teams or the people actually, if you encourage healthy reporting, saying that like Kaushik said that if you actually punish someone actually, that if someone is bringing an issue or actually start probing, then they will actually back foot, right? They will not report. So always you should reward someone actually, if someone is actually bringing how problematic the issue is. At least you can contain the incident actually for some time, immediately, from further problem is happening, or you will let this process continue, but you are aware that there are implications, right? Till instead of giving a shock to the organization, you let the process may continue with some kind of uh, some kind of caveats and with some awareness, and eventually you have to build a new process that will replace the existing process to ensure that your communication with third parties, internally, etc., actually migrate to the more secure methods, right? So this is what I would say, and other things actually, which Kaushik has covered, that now we are actually should make the IT processes less human dependent, right? And now there should be a buffer to absorb the human errors. Some kind of, if a password is leaked out, there should be a second factor authentication, right? If a person clicks on a malicious link, there should be still an isolation of the user systems to the the main systems, which are actually the system of records, right? Even a person involved in the social engineering attack, right? Still we should have the controls, we should not fail, right? That, for example, if an IT administrator or IT support guy is social engineered to give his local account, still the authentication should not happen unless it happens from a specific server or a system. That means access controls actually should prevent this thing. Uh, so even the password length and all we say, but however length, the more lengthier the password you insist, the more easier the password would become, right? Eventually, because people can't remember a very lengthy password, they will actually eventually keep a simple pattern of text actually, which can be easily guessable, right? So while actually you have to improve the user awareness, because this continues to be the weakest link. At the same time, you have to work on the backward that the system should be more independent from the human errors, right? Both actually have to go on parallelly, because as the things are evolving, will be still human dependency would be there. For example, data analytics is a classic example that you cannot actually perform a good analytics unless we have a good quality data, right? So these are the two things parallelly. We have to, information security teams have to balance between these two, right? So thank you, Kaushik. That's what is from me, my side actually in summary.
Thanks a lot, Mr. Shrihari, and that was very, very insightful. And before even I start on that, request all of you to please start posting your questions, whatever you have from me or Mr. Shrihari, and accordingly we'll be, let's say, answering those things. And till time, let's say the people start this particular thing. Absolutely, Mr. Shrihari, I think that was very insightful, so as to understand how exactly maybe before 1999 itself, you started your investigations. At that time, you found the telnet and let's say the different things, whatever might have been open, and then you got to know about the email, the upload functionality, and everything. Where I don't know if it was the curiosity of that particular individual, or let's say they were trying to make sure that okay, the mail server stopped responding or something like that. But yes, exactly. So the negligence, the, let's say, the people not paying attention, or they think that it's something which should be as a BAU, a business as usual, because nobody informed them that they should not do this at all. One or the other reason, but yeah, the main crux, what I understood was that okay, we have to focus on the concepts, we have to focus on the basics, we have to answer the why. That why exactly organizations need to implement security awareness training, why exactly organizations are asking you not to write down your password. Something which you correctly said, let's say rightly said, Mr. Shriyari, was about the long passwords. Even NIST came back with the same and said that you should not have long passwords at all, because When you have long passwords, you will write down it somewhere or the other. And when you write down, that's a huge case, right? So you should have short passwords. When I say short, it doesn't mean that okay, 2 or 3 letters. But yeah, short means let's say 5 or 6, whatever let's say letters you can come out with, and accordingly your password should be configured. Of course, based upon the current cyber threat, based upon the current landscape, we should have multi-factor authentication as well enabled, not just for the production, but even for the development, the test environments and all, because we have no idea where exactly the intruder is sitting, where exactly the malware is sitting, and accordingly they might be compromising the systems. Because based upon the recent studies, what we have seen is that the malwares are actually deployed inside the organization, inside the, let's say, servers, and they are hiding inside as well. They do not function at that instant itself, at that moment. They will wait for 2 months, 6 months, 8 months, whatever the time period, and then they let's say start the malicious activity. The recent case, majority of the hospitals in Europe and US actually got compromised from a ransomware which was sitting on their premises from the past 8 to 10 months to, let's say, 1 year, when there was no COVID at that time. And when they understood that okay, now is the critical time of COVID and everything, then they triggered so that they can get that particular ransom, they can get those things from the let's say from the hospital people, and then accordingly they triggered. So rightly said, Mr. Riari, absolutely. Thanks a lot for that. Let's see if we have any questions. Okay.
Yes,
I do not
we do
see.
have some of the
Yeah,
questions.
yeah, please go ahead.
So there is a question from Shreya Pandey. She wanted to ask that how to make a security awareness session more interactive in the times of work from home.
Okay. So security awareness session over there, like the way I said, now the times are gone where we used to run the slides and then accordingly, let's say people used to do it. The experiential learning, which I said, where you can create, let's say, these escape rooms types of concept. These escape rooms will be virtual in nature, absolutely, like small rooms which you can create. Have a team meeting over there. Give them user stories with a different time period, or let's say with a specific time period, and ask them to apply the brain that okay, how exactly you'll come out of this situation. Okay, give them a brief scenario, give them something like that. That will help. That's the first concept. The second one is that give them exactly what they need. When I say exactly what they need, if let's say I'm a consultant over here, I'm sending out lots of emails, let's say during my entire day, then I should be let's say getting the training that if let's say a hacker's email, or let's say an intruder's email came around over there which says that okay, let's say like let's say my CEO's name, right? Okay, Darshan Shantamurthy at CISAinfosec.com. It just says Darshan.Shantamurthy at CISAinfosec, and the last C has been replaced by, let's say, K or something like that, and I don't even identify it. Then these kinds of trainings I should be given at that time. And one particular thing which was rightly being mentioned by Mr. Srihari, the business email compromises, the BEC attacks, those are quite relevant in nature, where organizations or the people are trying to target these C-level executives, because at that time they will know that okay, people will just respond as soon as they get out the emails, and that compromises the loyal system. So these are a few use cases in which you can go ahead and implement. Bharat?
So I
Thank
will
you so much, Kaushik, for
here,
the
if you don't mind. So I agree with the
Yeah, yeah.
participant to ask the question that the security awareness trainings are becoming less interactive these days because of people. I mean, the companies have adopted the online security module with some kind of quiz, at the end of the session. And if you can ask this quiz answers, from someone, actually, you can clear the question. It become actually, kind of a mandatory activity. But however, there are other, programs which have come out which complement the information security through kind of, interaction. Like, for example, phishing simulation is something like a hands-on thing. Actually, you do something, actually get fish. It gives a kind of chill. Like. That okay, you have done something wrong, actually you'll have a very hard lesson, like because it will put you through kind of a kind of awareness, etc. Right? And apart from that, there are specialized trainings actually companies are investing. For example, PCI DSS training is actually a mandatory training for all the developers, testers, and operations teams, which give a very specific, interactive trainings, on how to handle the card numbers, etc. Right? So while general awareness is becoming a more, automated, more non-interactive, but other trainings are actually companies investing. For example, the developers training, they're actually interactive. We call them actually workshops, right? How to do the secure coding development, what are the different there is like it's like a classroom kind of training where they'll be given some kind of bad code and they have to identify that what's wrong with that code, etc. Right? So so this is, earlier there used to be road shows, etc. Actually, with the companies are becoming gigantic, right? So now there's a lesser focus on that kind of front, right? So the trainings are actually evolving that way, right? I don't know whether it helps actually, whatever I have said. Yeah.
No, absolutely, absolutely, Mr. Sherry. That actually helps, and that gives actually participants over here more real time thing, or let's say how exactly let's say Reliance or let's say the other organizations are also implementing the same. So thanks a lot, Mr. Sherry, for that. Bharat, do we have?
Absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
we do have one more question from Arni Toribilas. So the question is, how can we measure user awareness without using any specialized tool?
Okay. So I will answer it, and then of course I'll pass on to Mr. Srihari as well. So as I also discussed during let's say the thing as well, that we have a lots of let's say user matrix which we can come out with, right? That okay, how often are we reporting the incidents now? That should increase basically after the awareness training, the reporting, because the people at the initial instant might not even know. Now, these things are not all based upon the tools. These are basically the communications which have to happen. The similar case goes to that how many people are now reporting the phishing emails, what are happening based upon the, let's like say Mr. Shredi said, the phishing campaigns and all those things, whatever you are doing inside your organization, so that it is increasing the awareness, and then accordingly you see that okay, the people are saying that okay, we are getting a lots of phishing emails, and accordingly we need to remediate or whatever the case might be. Accordingly, the let's say the employee knowledge where you are asking them questions relevant to their topics, and accordingly going ahead, and how much your incident remediation costs have decreased as well over the time. And apart from this as well, I believe that if you are giving them a real use case scenario of like let's say a breach investigation attack, something like that, that will be really worthwhile, so that they can understand that what exactly happened with some other organization, with some other vendor, what exactly they did wrong, and accordingly you can evaluate their knowledge after that by a series of questions, so that you can understand that yes, they got the let's say objective of that particular training in the rightful manner or not. So these are a few use cases. Mr. Shreyari, you want to add something?
Right, it's a very good question actually. That how do we measure the effectiveness of the information security program? It's the way uh, the incidents, number of incidents in the organization is not the true measurement of effectiveness of your information security program, right? Because why your organization gets attacked. Actually, there are many factors, right? That now, what is the interest for an attacker actually, in hacking or in attacking your organization, and so many other factors actually, coming to picture. Similarly, the user-related incidents and right cannot be accurately measured. That because out of 10,000 people in the organization, if there is an incident happened actually 2 times or 3 times in a year, setting up some sharing of some password or some kind of sharing some company data, that's actually what do you call it, actually 2 people out of 10,000. So So really, it's difficult to measure the effectiveness, because you can there is someone said, actually, you can actually measure the depth of the ocean, but you can't really predict actually what a person actually thinks can do. In spite of lots of awareness and all, you are still may get compromised in the given, with the persistent efforts and all, right? So whatever the measurement that we give to the management, like in terms of number of employees completed the online awareness session, number of people, number of developers covered with the coding practices, etc., it only talks about the project effectiveness status, right? How well a project is executed, right? We have done some commitment that we take up some programs, and it gives a kind of metrics that like we have some metrics actually defined, that what should be your target in reaching this awareness to the employees. But the effectiveness is actually cannot be measured either through the quizzes or through this any kind of measurement, right? It's a good question, but I think actually uh, awareness is a continuous program. It as long as actually it leads to the change in the culture and behavior. So it's a kind of non-tangible change that the awareness brings in.
Thank you so much, Shriyari. So Kaushik, I believe in the interest of time, we also have got 8 to 9 questions. We are going to take this last question, and we are going to open up the platform for the participants to take up the survey in parallel. And for such webinars, we would request the participants to follow us on the social media, so that you can get the constant updates regarding these webinars that we are conducting. So the last question that I wanted to take, and specifically, this is a very good question, I believe. So can you share your suggestions for schools and colleges where students are not much aware about phishing campaigns, and how schools can manage cybersecurity? That is one. The question being asked by follow-up answers as well. So this can be managed either by developing code books, red team, security awareness trainings, and how often these trainings should be conducted in the schools or colleges. What is your opinion on that, Mr. Kaushik and Shriyari? And then we can close it out.
Okay, I will let Mr. Srihari first answer it, and then I will answer. This is Mr. Srihari.
I think that question is about children, right? Not, a kind of the cybersecurity professionals being trained in the college,
Correct.
right? If I'm
Correct. Right. So basically, let's say from 1 to 12th, or let's say from 1st to 10th, something like that.
right. So fortunately, I have been part of some initiatives that protecting the children from the negative effects of social media. We call it cyberbullying, right? And particularly the age group of adolescents, actually, right? Particularly become the target for this kind of cyberbullying, body shaming, right? Blackmailing, what's not, right? We hear all these kinds of nonsense, right? In the like someone sends a friend request, so you basically want to chat, you like music, that's this and all, so many children actually fall prey to this kind of cyberbullying, and so a kind of anonymous blackmailing, etc., and it affects the health of physical and mental health of the teenagers, particularly the children actually in the adolescence right phase, right? So that's the reason we initiated a kind of cyber security awareness for the children to protect themselves from the you know from this kind of social media related issues, right? So basically, many of the children don't know the other side is a girl or a boy, right? Whether they're lying, whether the picture is correct or not, right? And all these things. So we give the many children believe that whatever is there in the content, right, on the social media is true, right? my children, child also reads, a lot of history, right? They read actually YouTube things actually about the Russian Revolution and all, but there are lies, right? Like people make the funny content actually, which easily gets sold, like easily gets into the children's brain, right? So basically, children are trying to, do the judgment on the authenticity of content available on the cyber, space, and also on the social media, right? It's better to avoid the social media for the children, but still, children start with the, a kind of WhatsApp to share their homework, etc. Eventually, they get into some their own groups, sharing some pictures and all these things, and then eventually get into social media like Instagram and all. That's where the problem starts. So we give awareness, right? That how do we make the judgment? How do we filter out fake? How do we do verification? How not to actually get into the demands of the other side, keeping a close watch as parents on the children, right? When that, how do the children report such kind of issues, how they speak to the parents, right? About such kinds of things are happening, right? So we give some awareness, right? I hope so we gave programs in different schools in Navi Mumbai and and Bombay. I'm not aware. Of course, Bombay there are some team members actually who did this thing, and across India in multiple places. But there's a lot to be covered. Even the government also taking a lot of steps, right? Cyber Cell and Maharashtra Police are also working towards awareness to children actually, right? How do we do the responsible use of social media, etc. So a lot to be done. I mean, I've seen actually outside countries like UK and Hong Kong. There is a quite a good awareness that what children are doing actually. They are involved in some kind of hacking, some kind of dark media participation. Right? We don't know actually. If eventually they get into some kind of crimes, etc. So there is more to be done actually. In terms of awareness. There is some small step has been taken up by this interesting groups actually. Right. So it's a very important. I think everyone should take this actually, responsibly.
Absolutely.
To teach them.
Absolutely, Mr. Sherry. Absolutely. So, so I believe that Mr. Sherry has absolutely hit the target over there. So for just to make it concise, or let's say make it very short, basically the let's say the school students like to be on the social media at a lot of times. So give them some examples from the social media perspective, so that they can understand it better, because that will be able to connect with their day-to-day lives. Secondly, there are, let's say, a few of your students who will like to, let's say, read books. Then give them some bookish knowledge that will help them across. And of course, these kinds of small sessions, if you can arrange for them, that okay, how exactly will you, let's say, respond if cyberbullying or something else is happening? Then I guess it will be a better way to impart the particular thing. So, Bharat, I think we have overshot the time a long time. So, the rest of the questions we'll answer it over the emails, if that's fine. And we
Yes.
again thanks Mr. Srihari to join us over here. Thanks for taking out time for us, sir. We know that you are pretty busy person, but you have taken out time for us. Thanks a lot, Mr. Srihari. Thanks a lot, team. Have a good day.